Welcome to the Resilient Mindset Podcast, an exciting new podcast by Resilience Queen, Justine Martin. Justine is the owner and founder of the Resilient Mindset, a division of the Justine Martin Corporation. Justine draws on her years of experience and knowledge, consulting with clients to develop and sustain a positive mindset. Focused on igniting your passion, purpose and power, follow the Resilience Queen each week as she delves into the mind of her guests, exploring fascinating stories and inspiring journeys.
Michell Hall is a certified Christian life coach. She works with women who developed low self-esteem because of adverse childhood events. She helps them build their self-esteem, change their story and get their power back so they can live the esteemed life. Michell is the last of 6 kids to a single mum, doesn't know who her father was, and has never had a father figure. She was born with a defect in her right eyelid and the lid droops. As a child, Michell stuttered and was picked on a lot. Michell was sexually abused by 2 family members when she was 10 years old and never told anyone for 30 years. She was stood up on her wedding day, but she married that man 2 days later. She used to internalize most everything and had low self-esteem and self-worth. Michell almost had a nervous breakdown in her 40s for holding everything in. She told people about the sexual abuse and got into counselling, where her healing began. Michell went on to get divorced and began to discover herself. She released her past and found peace and joy. Welcome back, listeners, to the Resilience Mindset Podcast. Today I've got Michell with me on our podcast, talking all things resilience. How are you, Michell?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm a bit nippy. I'm in the Southern Hemisphere and it's winter here, and I believe it's summer over there. Is that correct?
It is. It's a nice warm day here, a little damp, a little humid, but that's what we're used to here in the southeast of the United States.
And I'm sitting here with an electric throw rug on my lap because it is very cold here this morning.
My goodness.
So let's talk about resilience, everything to do with resilience. What does resilience mean to you, Michell?
Oh, resilience to me means the capability or the ability to bounce back from, challenges and things that we have going on in our lives. We know that, things are going to happen in life, things are going to change. And I think resilience is the ability that we have to weather those things. And, you may not be the same when you get to the other side, but you're intact. You're not broken. You're not, struggling. You're able to, keep on living.
Yeah, that's right. So what's an adversity that you faced and how did you draw on your personal resilience to cope?
One major adversity that I had was back in my childhood. I was a victim of childhood sexual abuse, and it was something that really affected me deeply because I already had low self-esteem from some other childhood hardships, but that came along after the fact when I was about age 10. And I just kind of held on to that. I internalized it. I didn't tell anyone. And I didn't tell anyone until really about 30 years later, till I was in my 40s. And so it's been relatively recent that I really kind of come full circle with all of that. And I ended up going to counseling, getting counseling help. I leaned heavily on my faith. I am a Christian, and I lean heavily on my faith and in prayer and meditation and just doing a lot of the self-work. Really, at that time that I started counseling, I was really ready to deal with that trauma that I had experienced all those years ago.
Yeah. So leaning on support is a key to building resilience.
Absolutely.
So whether it's within your faith or, paying an external person to sit there and listen to you in the form of a counselor, a psychologist, psychiatrist, depending on what your needs are, or just leaning on family and friends if available in your life. you can't build resilience without having a support of some description.
That is absolutely true. And for me and my situation, because I had internalized stuff so long and it was so deeply ingrained in me, it was so freeing just to be able to verbalize and just tell my story to somebody. And that, that was mainly what I did with the counselor, was just talk. I had held stuff in, not just from childhood, but as a grown woman, because of the low self-esteem, I just, I didn't deal with things. I just kind of went along day to day, and I didn't, I just didn't stand up for myself. And so I just had a whole lot. When I got started with the counseling, it was more than just dealing with the childhood sexual abuse. It was a lot of things that came out. So just being able to share that and talk and get it out was like so freeing. It felt so good.
So, Michelle, do you still see a counsellor?
I do not see a counselor at this point. I do have a life coach.
Yes.
I am a life coach, and I also have a life coach
too. So I like that you have a life coach, but I have a coach. I have a business coach, not so much a life coach, but I still see a counsellor regularly every 2 to 3 weeks, and have done so for the last 12 years. And I believe that, it's not my children, my family, or my friends' responsibility to hear me vent about, day-to-day things or what my body's doing. It's normally what my body's doing if I've been diagnosed with something else, or, it's failing me, and I offload to a stranger, which is not a stranger now. I've been going to her for 12 years, but offload to her, and she has to sit there and listen to me, because I'm paying for her to sit there and listen to me,
exactly,
and to give me like impartial advice. There's no judgment sitting there, and I walk out feeling lighter, just like what you've said, Michelle. So who are your role models in resilience, and why?
Probably one of the biggest role models for resilience for me would be Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
She has an amazing, powerful story. She had a very rough childhood, and she was abused, and she, I believe she got pregnant, I think at 14, and had a stillborn baby, and just had a rough time coming up. And for her to be able to move forward beyond that and to become the powerhouse that she has become, I think is absolutely astounding.
She's a self-made woman, isn't she?
She is. She is.
Yeah, she'd have to be one of my resilient role models as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing woman. Is there someone who inspires you? So I'm obviously thinking that Oprah does, but is there someone else in your life that inspires you?
Yes. I would say my mother is an inspiration to me, but probably not in the way that most people would think. Um, when I was a kid, I was born to a single mother, and I don't know who my father is, and that was part of the hardship of my childhood. And the lifestyle that my mother led spoke volumes to me. It showed me things that I didn't want to do, things that I didn't want to be. And it was really very, very instrumental in how I structured my life as a grown woman.
Yeah.
Because I saw some things that I didn't want for myself. Didn't necessarily know what I did want, but I was clear on what I didn't want. So that was inspiration, I guess, in opposite.
Yeah. Knowing what life you wanted to create for yourself, Michelle.
Yes. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand. I truly love my mother, she just led a lifestyle that was not one that I want for myself
Yeah.
or wanted for myself.
And I'm sure there's a lot of children out there that don't want to live the lifestyles that their parents lived, me included. My mum passed away at the age of 49, and she also had MS, and the way that she lived her lifestyle didn't help her MS, and I can't blame her because that's the way people lived back then. Lots of fried foods, no exercise, no water. I know you're probably talking about a different thing in your upbringing, but we make a conscious decision, and we all have that choice. We can go down the same path of our parents, our family, the way we were brought up, or we can choose a better life for ourselves. And
Right. That's
pat
so true.
yourself on the back, Michelle, for creating that better life. Because not everyone does that.
That's
What are your
true.
passions in life, Michelle?
Probably my main passion right now in life is helping women thrive despite their past.
Yeah.
I work with women in my coaching practice, and I work with women who had hardships in childhood, and I know from experience how it affected me, and the internalization of low self-esteem and low self-worth and lack of confidence. And if we don't deal with those things, it can hinder us long term. It doesn't just go away when you become, a grown up. It can affect us throughout life. And I really found that out and figured that out when I got into the counseling, because I didn't realize how deeply ingrained things was until I got into the counseling and started talking. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's so much stuff. I think I spent probably the first few months in counseling telling my counselor, it's so much, because so much kept coming up.
Yep.
So I am very passionate about helping women to break those barriers and to move beyond that so they don't carry that burden, because it's such a heavy burden to carry.
Yeah, it is. How do you deal with setbacks in your own life, Michelle?
I do my very best to learn from them.
Yeah.
I'm a thinker. I'm an analytical and logical person. So I try to break things down and figure out the meaning in things, and, try to forge a path, forge a plan forward. I try not to get stuck, after I went through the counseling and, got on the other side of all of the hardship and trauma and things that I had dealt with. I made a decision for myself to not let things fester, to not let things sit. So I try to handle things quickly as they come up so that I don't get back in that pattern of internalizing and letting things affect me, so deeply.
Yeah. So tell me about a time when you had to deal with a major crisis. And how did you use your resilience through that major crisis?
That would be probably when I separated from my husband before we were divorced. I was married for 27 years.
Wow.
And
that marriage nearly didn't take place. Is that correct?
That is the marriage that nearly didn't take place. So let me just say a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that needs to be explained, because when I read that in your bio, I'm like, whoa, how does something like that happen?
Yes. Well, I got married young. I got married at about 21 years old. And at that time, of course, I was still in that low self-esteem place, low self-worth, lack of confidence, all of those things. And I had always wanted to know who my father was. I felt like I was missing the love and the guidance of a father.
Yeah.
And so when I met my husband, my ex-husband, I actually met him in high school a few years prior to us getting married. We didn't date then. We started dating later. he was in the military and he was getting ready to go overseas, and he asked me to marry him. And I said yes, of course, because yay. Um, and so we had the wedding planned, and it was a small family wedding, and we had that planned. And apparently, he had cold feet. His mother had a bit of influence there as well. She was not wanting him to marry me because of some things that had happened prior. And so she still had a good amount of influence on her sons. She had three sons. She was the only woman in the house. So they really catered to her. And so she had a great deal of influence. And because she didn't want him to marry me because of something that had happened prior, she was influential. I can't put it all on her because he was a grown man and he could make his own choices, but she had a great deal of influence, and she convinced him that they needed to be somewhere else instead of at the wedding. And so he left about 2 hours prior to the wedding. And of course I was devastated. And he came back the next day. We had a conversation, lots of tears, and I guess we made up, and we went to the courthouse the next day and got married.
Wow.
And I look back on that now and I think, wow, where were you in your state of mind, in your sense of self, to even let that happen? Because I can't even fathom that at this point in my life. But that's where I was, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
And despite that, we did remain married for 27 years. And I must say the entire marriage was not, it was not a bad marriage the whole time. We had our ups and downs, and no good and bad like anybody else. But
Yep.
there was always that lingering. There was always that lingering of how it got started. And so once I got into counseling and started to do my inner work and started to really deal with these things that had happened in my early life,
Yep.
and I developed a sense of self-worth and self-esteem, I wanted to have a better marriage. I didn't necessarily want to end the marriage, but I wanted a better marriage. I wanted the relationship between us to be better, to be stronger, to be deeper, more intimate. And we worked on it for a few years, and we just could not get on the same page. We didn't want the same things anymore. He was wanting to do this. I was wanting to do that. And we just could not make it work.
Because you never started off on the same page?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I mean, in a relationship, two people have to grow.
Absolutely.
Well, not so much at the same time, but they have to grow and still complement each other. And if
Yes.
one is growing and the other is stuck there, it's not going to work no matter how much you try.
Right.
In that relationship. And you obviously, once you went through counseling and your blinkers were taken off, you weren't the same person.
No, I absolutely was not the same person.
Put it all back in Pandora's box. That wasn't going to happen.
No. And so we decided to split, and that was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done because, like I said, I really didn't want the marriage to end. I really wanted it to be better. We had been together for 27 years.
Yeah.
And so I didn't necessarily want it to end. I wanted it to be better, and we couldn't make it better, or we didn't make it better. I'm not going to say couldn't, but and it was a crisis because of that. One, a lifetime, a lifelong relationship was coming to an end. We also had one son who was a teenager who was getting ready to go off to college. And it was a huge, huge blow to him to have his family torn apart that way. And so it was just really, really, just really a hard time. And I continued with the counseling. I continued with the prayer. But I think what was most important for me is that I made a decision that I was going to get through it. I wasn't going to stay in it. I wasn't going to, just be like, oh, woe is me. It was a hurtful time. It was a very rough, probably 6 or 7 months as I was trying to adjust to this whole new thing. But I was determined not to stay stuck in it. So I continued to move forward. Yeah. And I continued with the counseling. I continued going to church and prayer and all of those things. And that was really, really what helped me get through the process.
So again, support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had my sisters and, a couple of good girlfriends that I could, lean on. So it was very good having that support there.
And so asking for support is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad you agree with that one.
Yes.
I disagree with that, and I'd argue them to the point. It's definitely a sign of strength asking for support and help. Yet not many of us do it because we see it as failure.
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't have to walk it alone. You don't.
You don't. You don't. But so many women do. So many women.
Men as well. Men are twice as bad because they think that, that big macho man thing that they have to do it all alone, and people are going to think they're weak and gutless if they ask for help. And that's not the case at all. So, if you're sitting there and you are struggling at the moment, listeners, then, reach out. You can pick up the phone and call. Over here in Australia, I'm not sure about in the States, that we have like Lifeline, we have Beyond Blue, we have so many organisations that you can pick up the phone and chat to someone immediately over the other end if you are, having a major crisis in your life and, mentally it's affecting you in a very negative way. Or, just pick up and catch up with a friend. And you don't even have to offload everything with them, but just, to sit there and have a cuppa and have the support with them is huge. Or if you are faith-based, going to church and having a chat to someone there. There are people all around you. You just have to let them in. Yeah. So, Michelle, how do you practice self-care and personal wellness?
Oh, that's a big one. And it's something that I could certainly do better with. But I enjoy spending time with family and friends to decompress because I still work a full-time job and I do life coaching. Wow. So I'm very busy.
What's your full-time job, Michelle?
I am a director of budgets and grants at a local college.
Wow.
That's my background is numbers, which is why I'm a logical thinker because I deal with numbers every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So spending time with friends, I like to journal. There's something very spiritual and cathartic about journaling and writing pen to paper. I enjoy doing that. And of course I pray and meditate. Those things are very important in my life.
That's good. What's your favorite movie that features a person's inner strength to get up? I've heard some different ones in the last 40 episodes. So
the one that comes to mind for me is The Color Purple.
Yes.
And, it's just a dynamic movie. And of course, Oprah was in that movie. And I think she's doing a remake of that now.
Really?
I think so. I've seen something on social media. So I think she has a new cast of folks and they're doing a remake of it.
Didn't she? Did she direct that or produce that, the first one?
I think it was produced by Steven Spielberg.
She had something to do with it.
She was, I don't know what her role was off screen, but I know she acted in the movie.
Yeah, I thought she had an off-screen. I'll Google it while we're talking, Michelle.
She may have. I wouldn't be surprised to find that out. But I think the main character, Celie, is just like the epitome of resilience, and with all that she dealt with. I mean, she started out with a rough life, being abused by her father, who actually was not her father, and had children by him, and then he married her off, and to the guy who continued to beat her and to abuse her, and all of that, to where she really just found her strength and was able to leave. And it's just a whole story, but she is that character was a very resilient character.
Yeah, that was the one that had Whoopi Goldberg in it as well.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Someone the other day, they have remade it already.
Okay.
Yeah, so the new one must be coming out. Someone the other day told me Shrek was the one that came to mind, the movie Shrek, and I'm like, well, we all have different tastes, and
I think I heard that one.
did
I
you?
think
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, we all have different interpretations on it, but he's right. They were right. Shrek does raise up and keeps bouncing back. What's a quote that you live by?
It's not a quote, it's a scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably not verbatim, but it's about not being anxious or worried for anything, but taking our issues to God in prayer. And I really do try to live by that. I don't like to be stressed out. I don't like to, I don't like to carry burdens. I'm very, very cognizant of when something is bothering me and dealing with it immediately. So, that is a very poignant scripture that I live by.
Yeah. What's the best job or position you've had that you've loved, and why?
Probably my current full-time job as a budget director. As I was saying earlier, I enjoy working with numbers and spreadsheets and all of that kind of stuff. And it has just been a very wonderful experience. And I've been on that job, going on 10 years now? Going on 10 years now. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the environment, the people who I work with. I enjoy the work itself because I enjoy working with numbers and reconciling things and analyzing things. So, that's something that I thoroughly enjoy.
That's great. Have you faced a time where you've just been in survival mode? And what resilience techniques did you use to cope?
Survival mode, that major crisis of when I was separated, I think I was in survival mode for that 6 or 7 months because I was still working full time. So I had to go to work. And when I would get home from work, it was like I had no strength to do anything.
Yeah.
I still had my son. He was a teenager. He was able to drive himself. Thank God, to get places. I mean, if I had to do it, I would have done it. But it was tough. It was a lot of processing that I had to do. And I felt like I was doing the bare minimum to just live. And I would go to work and I would come home and I would just get on the couch and just do nothing for the rest of the evening. And, I could not I could not make any major decisions during that time because my emotions were everywhere, up and down, here and there. And so I felt that way for about a good 6 months, for probably a good 6 or 7 months before things really started to level out and I could really think clearly and trust what I was feeling was real.
Yeah. At least you realized that you couldn't make a decision in that.
Yes, I'm glad nothing came up major at that point in my life because I don't know what I would have done, honestly.
What guides you to find purpose and direction?
What guides me to find purpose and direction?
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say my faith.
Yeah.
I believe as a Christian that I am here to serve. I believe we all have a purpose. And part of that purpose is to serve. I think we're all here to serve in some way, form, or fashion. And so that is what drives me.
Who are the three most influential people in your life and how have they impacted you?
Well, let me see. I had already said Oprah.
Yeah.
Um, I would have to say another person that is influential in my life is our prior First Lady, Michelle Obama. I think she represented the country well, as the first African American First Lady, first family in the White House. They had to deal with things that other presidents and first ladies didn't have to deal with. And I love how she presented herself. She's well spoken, well educated. I think she represented not just Black Americans, but I think she represented Americans very well.
Yeah, I would agree.
And
The outside world looking back in.
yes.
Yeah.
And probably another person that is very influential in my life is my coach. She is like the quintessential entrepreneur. She has like 5 or 6 businesses that she's running. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I'm a part of one of her businesses which is a Christian women entrepreneur, kind of like a container. And that's one of her businesses. And she mentors and coaches Christian women. But she is very inspirational and influential because she also shows me what's possible for myself. She's an African American woman, and she is self-made also. And it just shows the possibility. And when I was younger, I didn't see a lot of that. So it's really wonderful to see women of color building businesses and building empires where, back 50 years ago, that was not, I didn't even think that was possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
we have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
yes, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could go back, Michelle, and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Get help and not carry burdens, not deal, to not deal with things, I guess is what I'm saying, is, take care of things, get the mental health that you need so that you don't carry these burdens. If I had done that, when I was a younger woman, I don't know what my life would have been like. I'm sure it would have been different than what it was, but that would be my advice, is to deal with the trauma, deal with the hardships.
Yep.
So that it doesn't follow you.
Save yourself some time then, wouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely. I would have.
Yeah. Good advice there. Are you a reader, Michelle? Do you read?
Yes. I have a whole library of books here at the house.
What are 3 books you'd recommend to my audience and why?
I would recommend The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
I think that's the title. Yeah, with written by Stephen Covey.
Yep.
I think that's just a good book for
very old book, but a very good book.
Very old, but still very relevant. Yes.
Yeah.
That would be one. I would recommend Successful Women Think Differently by Valerie Burton.
Yep.
She is one of my former mentors. I went through her coach training intensive a few years back, and that's a phenomenal book. And right now I'm reading a book. What's the name of it? The Body Keeps the Score. And it's a deep dive into how trauma affects us physiologically. So I'm very excited to delve more into that. So if anyone has experienced any kind of trauma, I think this would probably be a good book to check out.
Yeah, sounds like a great book. What's one question you'd wish that I'd asked you, and how would you have answered?
Um, what is my favorite thing about being a coach?
What's your favorite thing about being a coach, Michelle?
I think my favorite thing about being a coach is a coach. I am the person that I needed when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I strive to be that for women every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that comment. You want to repeat that comment again? There's some more people in the audience that I'm sure would love to hear that again.
Yes, as a coach now, I am the person that I needed when I was younger.
Yeah. I'm making a note of that. I love that quote. Just writing that one down. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you spend it on?
Ooh, I would travel. I love traveling and seeing different parts of the world. I would do a lot of traveling. I would probably invest in real estate because $10 million, although it sounds like a whole lot of money, is really not a whole lot of money if you really think about it. Not anymore. So I would do some investing. I would give some to charity. And of course I would help my family. I would set my son up and help my family.
Awesome. All right, so we've got some quirky questions.
Uh-oh.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
If I could live anywhere in the world, it would be on a tropical beach somewhere. I don't know where, but it would be on a beach with lots of blue water and sunshine.
Yeah, God, me too.
Yeah.
I live in one of the furthermost states of Australia and it's always cold.
Oh, no.
Yeah. My son lives in far north Queensland, which is 3,000 kilometres north from here, and I try and get up there 4 or 5 times a year just for some warmth. But I'm off to Bali next month. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm going over for a writing retreat for 7 days, workshops, and then I'm going to have 4 days of a bit of a rest just by myself, feet up by the pool, drinking pina coladas. That's my goal.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, then I'll come back and it'll be 5 degrees. So
oh no.
I know, right?
Back to reality.
I'll make the most of those 12 days while I'm there. What was your favorite subject in school?
Math and English.
I knew you were going to say math.
Yes.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yeah. Yes. I can take it or leave it.
What's your favorite pizza?
Pepperoni and sausage.
All right. What's your favorite food?
I love Asian cuisine. So usually it's some type of noodles.
Yep. Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, or red wine?
Ooh, coffee mainly, but red wine on occasion.
How do you have your coffee?
Lots of cream.
Yeah. What's your favorite red wine?
Actually, I like the sangria. The blackberry sangria was what I was thinking about.
Nice. So Michelle, where can my listeners find you online if they want to come to you for some life coaching?
They can find me online on my website at livetheesteemedlife.com. And they can find me on Facebook with the same name.
Yep.
And Instagram with the same name.
And we'll put all those details, listeners, in the show notes. So if you want to find Michelle, all her contact details will be there. Well, Michelle, that brings us to the end of our little chat today. I'd like to thank you for being on the Resilience Mindset and sharing your story with our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great time.
You're welcome. And remember, listeners, until next time, stay resilient.
Are you ready to be inspired? Get ready for the book that will touch your heart and ignite your spirit. Whispers of Resilience, Personal Stories of Living with MS is now available for purchase. Have you ever wanted to peek into the lives of individuals who have triumphed over adversity? Look no further. This highly anticipated anthology brings together a group of exceptionally talented authors, all living with multiple sclerosis, who share their personal journeys with unyielding honesty and vulnerability. At www.resiliencemindset.com.au, you can now secure your copy of this remarkable book that captures the essence of resilience, hope, and the power of the human spirit. Dive into the stories that will captivate your imagination and open your heart to the triumphs and challenges faced by these courageous individuals. With each turn of the page, you'll witness the unbreakable spirit of these authors, as they navigate the unpredictable terrain of NIS. Their words will inspire you, uplift you, and remind you of the incredible strength that lies within. Visit www.resiliencemindset.com.au now and embark on a transformative journey through the pages of Whispers of Resilience. Get your copy today.
We hope you enjoyed the Resilience Mindset podcast. Remember to subscribe to the podcast to get your weekly fix listening to Resilience Queen Justine Martin. Follow Justine on social media at Resilience Mindset or log on to justinemartin.com.au. And until next time, remember, life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient.